Welcome, everyone. I'm Walter Crosby with Helix Sales Development, your host of Sales and Cigars. Today, my guest is David Newman. He's an author. He's got 3 books that speak to specific ideas and specific things that are important to a business owner. Do It Marketing is the book that I talk about a little bit on the what I happen to have, and I left it on an airplane. And that's a book he published back in 2013. He's done Do It Speaking, and he's done Do It Selling. He sort of have this theme. So, and we get into copywriting and what's important there. We talk about some of the things that we've learned from our successes and failures. Great storyteller. So go grab a cocktail, go grab a cigar, strap in for another impactful episode of Sales and Cigar. So David, welcome to Sales and Cigars. I appreciate you taking some time to jump on the program.
Hey, Walter, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Seems like it was just a few days ago that we chatted ourselves on your podcast.
So. Mere minutes. It seems like minutes.
That was fun. So I've been looking forward to this. So I like to start off with like a little softball type question, but and to me it always helps me understand the guest a little bit. But what's the book that you've given out the most to? And I think I know the answer, but that you've given out to your friends and colleagues and clients.
Wow. Well, obviously, we're not going to pick one of my books, but
we could if you wanted.
Well, but that's not necessarily true that I've given. So because I like my friends to buy the book. The book that I've given to people is actually Linchpin by Seth Godin.
Great book.
It is a great book. And I think it's one of the kind of underrated. It sort of came out between some of his more mega bestsellers, but I think it is an underrated gem, and it's great for entrepreneurs. It's great for executives. It's great for people who are carving their own path in life and who want to be a linchpin.
But it's I've given it to salespeople. When I first read it, I remember I gave it to the guy that I was working for. And he read it and he's like, "What were you trying to achieve with that?" And I'm like, "What were you thinking I was trying to achieve with it?" But it's really a great book to help people realize that they can add value and be a leader and be that person regardless of where they are in the role.
Totally agree. That's one of the main reasons I love it as well.
And you try to get your friends and colleagues to buy the book. I love that your own books, but we'll get to that. And I think in a minute we'll talk about your books. Tell me a story, if you would, because I think you're a pretty good storyteller, about how you turned something that was like awful or a failure, and then turned it around and made it a success.
Well, that's my whole entrepreneurial business, my friend. So when I started out, I knew nothing, and I was a complete disaster at all of the things that I teach and coach and mentor and have mastered today. Didn't know squat about marketing. World's worst salesperson, literally worst salesperson. People would, so I would go to sales training classes. The chamber would sometimes have, hey, we got the local Sandler guy. He's going to come in and do some free sales training. I would show up. Walter, I'd have my pen. I would have my notebook. I'm in the first row.
Yep.
First sentence out of the sales trainer's mouth is, well, when you're talking to prospects, he already lost me. I was like, hold on. Where do I find this magical beast called a prospect? How am I supposed to find these people to talk to? You already lost me in square one. So literally, complete disaster, hit every dead end, hit every brick wall. And it's truly a case of we end up teaching what we most need to learn ourselves. And so I went out as a generalist in my business, financial disaster for 3 solid years. I then said, okay, what do I love? What do I want to become great at? What would be the biggest value and impact that I could have? And for those 3 years, by the way, I saw all these other entrepreneurs struggling and lost and hitting the brick walls and hitting the dead ends. I'm like, well, obviously I'm not alone. So I doubled down, I tripled down. I studied, I hired mentors, I hired coaches, I read every marketing and sales book I could get my hands on. And then by about 4 years in, I started to get my sea legs. I started to close some big coaching and training deals with companies like Microsoft and QVC and Merrill Lynch and PNC Bank and Accenture Consulting. And then my colleagues came to me and said, hey, David, can I pick your brain? Can we have breakfast? Can we have lunch? How are you closing all these big corporate deals? And I told them, and then literally that was the light bulb moment going, oh, I could teach other people what I spent 5 long, hard, painful years figuring out. And that's what changed the trajectory of my business and made that into a success.
That is a true entrepreneurial story, like, because it's authentic. And I've heard versions of that, but usually they're not quite as honest with the struggle. But you really nailed the idea that when that light bulb moment, you're having breakfast and lunches with your colleagues, and you're explaining to them what you learned, and it's like, oh, boom, there it is.
Well, you're totally right. And, kind of the classic entrepreneurial mantra is scratch your own itch, right? Mm-hmm. So whatever problem you've had, probably other people have had that problem. So your best client is you 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And that was totally the case in my world.
It really is true, right? Because it's an axiom to the cobbler's children don't wear shoes, right? It's sort of in that same ilk where we take what we've learned and apply it, and then we elevate, and then we do that again, and we keep doing that. It's called growth.
Yeah,
turning those challenges into an upside. I love it, and I think I knew you had great storyteller. I just knew it. So think about I call it an investment, but it's really effort. It's something that you've done in your career that you've taken the time or money or resources to put into that gets you a hell of an ROI. Right? Is there anything that comes to mind there that
there is, and it may be surprising or it may not. It's really investing in copywriting and copywriting mentors and copywriting courses. The interesting thing, so I was an English major in college. I majored in English and drama, double major. And, the old joke is, well, you'll never make money as an English major. What the, what's going on? That's crazy. English majors are the ones that are serving you the latte at Starbucks. But the interesting thing with copywriting, and you know this, Walter, is it's not about the writing. It's about the thinking. It's about the human psychology. It's about the buying triggers. It's about empathy. It's about truly being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and tell the story from their perspective, right?
Yep. And to tap into that emotion.
Yes. So investing in copywriting, I would say, is probably the biggest bang for the buck ROI that I have ever made, because every email, every LinkedIn post, every personal email that I write to a prospect, those are I'm not even aware of doing it. So people have come up to me and said, "Oh, you must have studied for years with Tony Robbins. You must have all kinds of NLP certifications." And never studied with Tony, although I admire him a lot. Obviously, he's built a world-class business. Never studied NLP, never even read a page of an NLP book. But because those human psychology principles are baked into most copywriting books, programs, mentors, people who know what they're talking about when it comes to writing copy, I'm getting all this credit for taking all this other training that I never had. studying human psychology and sales psychology, the way it's applied to copywriting, that's been very big for me.
So I'm curious, based on that position, a guy like Dan Kennedy. I mean, emulating his stuff, reading his sales letters and marketing letters that he's written. I subscribe to his stuff because Russell Brunson bought all his stuff,
Yeah.
and so they're pushing it out there, and so I just read the emails that he sends out, and I'm trying to dissect, like, how far back in English did we dissect sentences and break them into little sections? I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
that
I think it was middle school.
showing how old I am, because I don't know that they do that anymore. But that's what I try to do with his stuff, is understand the theory there, and it is complex, and it is, for somebody like me, it's difficult. I like to write, but I'm not great at it.
Yeah.
But the writing is, the words are easy. It's the thinking, as you said,
Yeah.
and knowing where we're trying to go and where we're trying to take that reader along that emotional journey.
Can
I
I
can
add
do
one
it.
quick thing to that?
Absolutely.
So I think if folks that are watching and listening, if they want to get a little bit into this copywriting mojo, I love what you said about I collect emails from really good marketers. So the next time that you get an email, first of all, I keep all the emails that I open. So from subscriber lists, from email lists, because if I opened it, it's like there must be something good there. So I literally have a folder in my email, and Walter, perhaps you do as well. I'm guessing that you do. It's called Marketing Swipe File. All the good emails, all the things I'm like, oh, this is good. I don't know why it's good, but it's good. And then I'll unpack it like doing a crossword puzzle.
Good analogy. Good analogy. It's one of the things that I picked up from Kennedy, because he actually keeps direct mail pieces that he gets that catch his eye. He maybe has no interest in buying the thing, but he's going to dive into it at some point. I have a swipe file, multiple swipe files for segmented into pieces.
Yeah.
But that's a great piece of advice for the listeners, that if you opened it and it caught your attention for more than 7 seconds, there's something there that you should be thinking about and trying to emulate.
Yeah.
So, and this sort of, just as we were talking about it, I think there's a way to use artificial intelligence and to help you write better if you're trying to do a formula. But this is my opinion. I'm interested in yours, that it cannot replace the human element to it, but it can help us with research. It can help us with some structure. Am I off base there? Or
No, I am totally with you. And it's so funny that you say this, because literally yesterday morning, I wanted to write an email series, and I'm like, let me try Chat GPT. So I studied Chat GPT. I bought some books. I prompt engineering, and I give very detailed, very specific prompts. One of the things you can do that's kind of fun is write this email in the style of fill in the blank, right? Dan Kennedy, Tony Robbins, David Newman, Walter Crosby. And I looked at the output, and it was good, but not great. So I would say, think about it this way. The way I think about it is AI, when it comes to copywriting, or really any kind of writing in this vein, it used to be that the human does 90% of the work, like let's say in Microsoft Word, and then the robots do 10%, spell check, grammar check, punctuation, etc. Now I think ChatGPT can take you probably 80% of the way there. But if you just leave it like that, it's going to be good, might be decent. It's not going to be great. It's not going to be great, and it's not going to be you. So the thing is, we need to do that 20% of polishing, fine-tuning, changing the vocabulary, put it in your voice, put your spin on it. So I'd always rather do 20% of the work than 80% of the work. But, AI alone is not going to cut it.
And, everybody, there's a lot of buzz around social media about how this will save you time and how this will make your life completely easy. And I think that's a misnomer, like most stuff on social media. I think your description is it gets us someplace faster, but if we still don't put that human element, we still don't think about it. Is that the right voice? But you said something else that I think is really important for somebody who wants to use Chat GPT successfully, is to build out those personas and separate those in your version, or whatever we call that instance of what you've purchased, so that you're speaking to your customer, and that customer persona might be different than the people over here. But if the more of it that you help it understand, and the more detail that you give it, the better it will get, because it's only learning what it can pick up. I have not tried writing in the voice of Dan Kennedy. I kind of made me curious. It might be something I screw around with tonight. Um, but I'm glad that I think we're on the same page there. That it's a tool that we can use, just like a screwdriver or a hammer. They're not always right. Like my toolbox has a screwdriver, a hammer, and my brother's phone number. And I
Yeah,
check it.
exactly. Exactly.
If I can't fix it with the first two, the last two can help me get it fixed.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Is there in your space, in the everything that you're doing supporting your clients, is there, and we don't need to name names, but is there bad advice that you hear that just pisses you off?
Oh my
Is there?
lord. So yes, and I'm going to put it in a very generic bucket. So
Okay.
we work with B2B corporate consultants, business coaches, professional speakers who are doing an offline business. They might use email, they may have subscriber lists, they obviously use LinkedIn, but they're offline experts. They're offline experts. The huge tsunami of advice that they're getting is trying to make these corporate consultants who are selling into like Fortune 500, Inc. 5000 companies, corporate consultants, business and executive coaches, professional speakers, corporate trainers, trying to make them into internet marketers, and trying, oh, you have to have funnels, you have to have tripwires, you have to have a $7 thing, and then go to a $47 thing, and go to a $97 thing, and then have a 3-day online event. A corporate VP is not going to hang out for a 3-day online event. A corporate VP is not going to buy your $7 tripwire, and a CEO of a $25 million company is not going to sit through your 2.5-hour webinar. So we need to have direct contact strategies that open up relationships, build a genuine connection. You know this because we have the same philosophy on this, but I'm just ranting about this because I am so anti-funnel, anti-internet marketing. If you don't want to be an internet marketer because your clients aren't there and that's not the kind of business that you want to run, for heaven's sakes, don't become an internet marketer, because all this misinformation, all this vortex of conflicted advice is flying at your head.
So I love that. What in the alternative for the people that really want to do face to face, that have value to offer, right? Because if you don't have value, you're not going to do well. You're not going to be successful, and it's hard to bring value for $7 or $47 for that matter.
Right.
And I've experimented with all of that. And I've always in the back of my head, like, my target audience is a business owner, CEO of that 10 to 50 to $100 million company that, is trying to get to the next level. I love the people that are in the 10 trying to get to 20, or the people at 7.5 trying to get to 15, right? Those are my people. Because I don't have the patience to work with those Fortune 500 people. It's just not my, and I have to know my limitations. And I find it hard to believe that one of those people are going to have the time to invest, even if it's at 8 o'clock at night as they're winding down their day. I just don't see them pulling that up.
Right.
So all of that being true, or that's our belief, what do they do?
Walter, you should write a book because CEOs will read your book. That's what I'm talking about, my friend. So this is a classic. This is a fantastic book, by the way. So congratulations on writing it. This is the kind of thought leadership that a CEO of a 5, 10, 15, $20 million company will totally engage with. But they're going to engage with it when they're in the back of an Uber going to a meeting. They're going to engage it when they're on a plane ride from Orlando to Chicago for a business meeting. They're going to read this book. They're going to go, oh my gosh, this guy has it totally dialed in. He's preaching to my choir. And as soon as this plane lands, I'm going to jump on his website. I'm going to give this guy a call because we're marketing to them with value, substance, relevance, and an understanding of what they're going through and an understanding of what they're up against. I just had a client call this morning, and she's dealing with a big corporate client, and there's a massive, big discussion document, lots of bullets. I said, listen, you've already had many great conversations with this prospect. The only 6 words that they need to hear right now is, I get you, meaning I understand what you're going through. I get you, and I got you. That we have the system, the frameworks, the training, and the tools to get you from where you are to where you want to be. So literally, if you look in Walter's book here, shameless promotion, but it's not self-promotion because I'm doing it.
It's not.
This is all about, I get you, I got you. I get you, I got you. If you can get that across to any B2B buyer, you are in. They will take your call. They will do that meeting. You've got them hooked because you've done your research. It's relevant. It is urgent. And it is something that they're immediately going to resonate and identify with.
Hey, thanks for being part of the Sales and Cigar community. I wanted to share that I wrote a book, The 7 Critical Mistakes CEOs Make with Their Sales Organization. The CEOs who've read it tell me I cut to the chase quickly, get to the point, explain exactly what they're experiencing, why they're experiencing it, and how to fix it. So if you want a free copy, go check out the link in the show notes. Now let's get back to the interview. Thank you. Very generous. And I was, this is a funny story, but it's kind of sad. I've taken that book and left it on purpose in the seat on the airplane in first class, like dropped it in the thing where I was sitting, and I just left it there on purpose. And I put one in my wife's thing too, right? On purpose. On accident, on my last trip back from San Diego, I left your book in the seat pocket in front of me. So somebody got a great gift because I didn't get all the way through it. And that's why I can't hold up your book, right? So you're going to have to do that. But I was embarrassed when you're holding up the book, right? I was blushing, but it's right there. It is. And it's I got through a few chapters of it. And then I had a couple glasses of Prosecco and put it down. But to me and you've got what, 3?
I've got 3.
3. The credibility that comes out, and you wrote real books, right? They got a hardcover. There's lots of pages. It's a real it's a real book. The book that you shared of mine, it was written to get it out of my system. I mean, literally, 1. And 2, it was like, okay, I could use this to help people understand how I think, and maybe that helps them, buy into I get you and I got you. That's awesome. And so what's your advice, right? This is sort of a long-winded way to wind around that, but is writing a book something that somebody who's coaching as a speaker, is some sort of leadership consultant that is that face-to-face? Is that something that they should do or that they shouldn't do until they're really prepared? What are your thoughts there?
Well, they absolutely should do it, but they should also wait until they're fully prepared. So the mistake I see a lot is a corporate executive, beautiful 25, 30-year career. They want to wrap that up. They launch themselves as a consultant with zero experience other than their corporate job. And the first thing they do is, oh, well, experts have to write a book, so I'm going to write a book. Almost every single person that has done that I've talked to said, I wrote the wrong book and I wrote the wrong book too early because I didn't know what I didn't know. I hadn't refined my expertise to the point where I can systematize. And you said something brilliant about I had to get out of my system so that I could capture lightning in a bottle. So now that we have a framework, now that we have something written down, now it's teachable. Now it's trainable. Now you can speak on it, coach on it, mentor to it. These folks that have zero experience in the entrepreneurial coaching, consulting, training, and speaking world, first thing you do is write a book. Huge mistake. I would get your first, let's say 20. I'm just going to pick a random number. First 20 clients, first 20 projects, first 20 companies that you do work with. Number one, tell their story as part of your book. Profile the success stories that you've had in your business in the book, because then other CEOs, other decision makers will read that. And again, what's the point? I get you, I got you. In your case, it's I get you, I got you, been there, done that, bought all the t-shirts. So I think you're right, there's this kind of crazy rush to write a book right away, as opposed to writing the right book at the right time.
So part of my thinking was 3 decades of screwing up, picking myself up, keep going, right? And Oscar Wilde said, experience is the name I give to my mistakes.
Yeah.
And I always added the corollary to that, like, I'm a really experienced guy by Mr. Wilde's standards. And I think a lot of what was there, or the reason, my motivation was to try to help people not do the same things I did, or at least do them less severely than I did.
For sure. And don't get me wrong. I mean, some people write a book very quickly after launching their business, and they do have the track record. They do have the success stories. Most of them don't, or at least not yet. I talked to one guy this was 6 months ago. And he said, well, David, I have a book, and then I'm doing this, and I'm customer service training or whatever it was. And I said, well, that's interesting. The book seems to be on a different topic. Oh, yeah, the book has nothing to do with my training business. I was like, who told you to write that book? So it's like literally, I mean, you and I look at this like common sense, right? You write the book that supports the business supports the book. It gives your thought leadership some concrete form. It should be in alignment. People now, Walter, they're just writing a book for the sake of writing a book. They're not even conscious or aware of what that book should be about, because they're not sure. Like in my early days, I wasn't sure what my business was about. So I wrote all kinds of crazy self-published softback books back in 2003 and 4 and 5. And I think they sold 7 copies total, 2 to my parents, and I probably bought 5, and that's it. But it's so much wasted time and effort because I didn't have the system or the process codified to the point where it deserved to be in a fixed format like in a book.
Yeah, that's really sound advice. Call it chops, call it experience, call it going through the entrepreneurial gauntlet, whatever. But there does have to be some continuity. It would be like me writing a book about quilting.
Right.
It doesn't really, I have no interest in quilting, but it doesn't support anything. My wife would find it interesting because she's big into quilting. But,
right.
There has to be some congruence there. So what I'd really like to sort of take this towards, you've made some great points. You've got 3 books. One of them's over your shoulder. You were kind enough to talk about my book, but let's talk a little bit about your books, why somebody might want to pick one of those up. And let's do a little bit of that self-promotion.
Sure, certainly. So the three books, the first book came out 10 years ago. This year is actually its 10th anniversary. So it came out in 2013 and it's now 2023. First book is called Do It Marketing. And my company is called Do It Marketing. Again, lack of imagination, but 100% alignment. Like, who's the Do It Marketing guy? Oh, the one that wrote the Do It Marketing book.
Let me look at the book.
Yeah, look at the book. And then, so that was about marketing, and about 30% of that book was actually sales because I had to sneak that in. Then the second book is called Do It Speaking, which is how to monetize speaking as a one-to-many lead generation strategy and a one-to-many sales tool. That's both speaking in person, online, offline, webinars, podcasts, all of those speaking strategies.
Okay.
And that was the Do It Speaking book. And then 2023, the Do It Selling book came out, and that was all about selling for the accidental salesperson. So it's that professional services entrepreneur, coach, speaker, consultant, lawyer, accountant, engineer, the people who love the work of the work, and they just don't like the sales part. And they've never mastered the sales part, and they're afraid of the sales part. And it's like the least favorite part of their day, and they want to learn how to be better at it and how to make it more fun and enjoyable and profitable and a lot less scary and a lot more collaborative and a lot more conversational. So one of the mantras that I put into the book is, don't worry about being a better salesperson. Be a better person, and more sales will happen. So what does that mean? Be more genuine, be more curious, be more relational. You know, don't come in with like commission breath and pushing your products and services on people. Be genuinely curious. Find out what they're up against. Find out what they're working on. See how you can help them. What people do they need to meet? What resources do they need to get their hands on? How can you be kind of a super connector and a net weaver where you are the introducer, right? You are the hub and all these spokes come off of you. And you're figuring out, how can I be of service to my Rolodex? Kids, look it up on Wikipedia. You'll find out what a Rolodex is. But yeah, so be a better person and more sales will happen. And then, of course, in the Do It Selling book, we also get very nitty gritty about things like sales discovery, the right kinds of questions, how not to get trapped by, nightmare clients from hell. A whole variety of things are in there, but it's really written for that person who did not set out to sell, but as an entrepreneur and as an expertise-based entrepreneur, they have to sell. And so learning how to do it in a way that's comfortable and organic and, dare I say, fun is what that's about.
I love it because there's a couple of parallel threads there that when I talk to those people, or just salespeople in general, is what we're really trying to do is, if you believe in your product, if you believe you're a good lawyer, you provide good value as an accountant or a doctor, right? Then what you should be focusing on is helping somebody. If you enter that conversation where I'm going to try to help this person one way or the other, and you bring the curiosity, which is critical, which you brought up, and a little bit of skepticism mixed in, like, why the hell are you doing it that way? How did you get there? Right? A little bit of that, just like you would talk to your friend.
Yes.
I had a friend when I lived in New York, and every once in a while, like, we'd call each other up, and the code was, we got to go have a pitcher of margaritas. Right? And that meant one of us had an issue we had to get out and talk through. Right? And it usually occurred over a pitcher of margaritas, which is not as much as you would think.
Right.
Especially when you're 25. But that was what it was. Like, we would look at each other and like, what are you, a knucklehead? Like, why would you do that? That's dumb.
Yeah.
Right. And you can't say that to clients or prospects, but we were literally trying to help each other. And that curiosity and the skepticism. And I think the other piece is empathy. We got to care enough and not use our skill set. If we have the skill set of sales, not use it as a weapon. You really got to help. I love it. So, last question, David, because this was as entertaining and educational as I anticipated. Do you have a relationship, past or present, with my friend, the cigar?
I do. So I probably smoke maybe 2 or 3 cigars a year. It's almost always at the National Speakers Association National Convention. They used to have these professional expert groups, and that was an acronym PEG, PEG. So there was one for consultants, a consultant's PEG, writer's PEG, sales PEG. About 20 years ago, my friend Ed Rigsby is sitting in the hotel lobby smoking a cigar. Somebody walked by and said, "What is this? The cigar peg?" And that name stuck. And so all the cigar aficionados, all of the cigar fans now get together at the National Speakers Association National Convention, and we still call it the cigar peg. And they bring cigars. You can donate cigars. You can buy cigars. And I'm a newbie, so literally 2 or 3 a year. I like cigars on the milder side, but I will tell you, when I'm walking down the street and I smell a cigar kind of wafting out of a window, or someone's ahead of me by 20 steps and smoking a cigar, I just go, "Oh yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one." So I do enjoy the occasional cigar, and I appreciate the cigars that I'm not even smoking myself.
Awesome. That's a great story. Cigar peg.
Yes.
That's cool. And it's somehow those things stick. Right, those little names. So this was a great conversation. There was a lot shared. You said a bunch of things that people might want to dig into. We're going to have a bunch of the ways to connect with you. But what's your preference? Somebody says, I got to talk to David. What's the best way to reach out to you?
Sure. So sort of command central for everything we do is the website, doitmarketing.com. And obviously, people can email me. It's simply david@doitmarketing.com. A couple of free resources. We have the podcast, which is called The Selling Show. That is at doitmarketing.com/podcast.
And you're
all the resources. Sorry?
You're close to 400 episodes, right?
Yes, we are close to 400 episodes. It's been quite a journey. And then I was just going to add all the resources, downloads, tools, etc., that go with the Do It Selling book are also at doitselling.com. That's a separate page that has all the goodies for people that are into the book.
All right, so we're going to have all of that in the show notes. I would encourage people to go poke around in there and go pick up the books. Amazon. They buy the books on
Amazon and wherever fine books are sold, or whatever first-class airplane seats you happen to be sitting in. It could be there too. We don't know.
Well, as a Delta flight leaving came from San Diego, so it was probably leaving Detroit, heading back to San Diego. So if somebody picked up that book and they happened to be listening to this, which would be serendipity,
it would
send David a note.
Definitely send me an email for that.
All right, man. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
So great to be here, Walter. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for being part of the Sales and Cigars community. I want to take a quick second to share that I'm doing a free sales hiring challenge this month. I'm going to give you everything you need to hire sales superstars and avoid the sales duds. Check out the link in the show notes to be able to sign up for free.